Hey Pete, what can you tell us about your bike?
Hey, good morning. This is a 1974 Kawasaki H2 750 Mach IV. So they made these 750 two-stroke triples from 72 to 75. I bought this from a friend of mine at Palo Verde back in 2000. It was a non-running project. So I disassembled it and left it in my shop for about 2 years, and then I restored it. So this has basically been restored for almost 25 years. It's a 18-inch wheel in the back, 19 in the front. It's the same rims as the Kawasaki Z1. My Z1 has exactly the same rims and brakes. Okay, so the H2, like the Z1, back then they put rim locks. This is a tube, obviously, and they put 2 rim locks. So hard acceleration, it prevented the tire from slipping on the rim. Two-stroke is oil injected. Okay, so the oil tank is here, is 2 quarts. Okay, and that 2 quarts, it'll run about 400 miles. Okay, you have a little window in here where if it gets low, you could see it, but I don't trust that. I have a little dipstick under the seat I'll show you, and I just sound the tank when I'm riding. I'll just put it on the trip meter so I know when I'm getting low. But anyway, there's your oil injection tank. Now 74, they changed some items on 74 for safety and engine. So they inject into the main bearings. Okay, there's a pump right here, an injection pump that is controlled on the throttle. So the throttle operates 3 slides on the carbs, and it operates the stroke on the pump. So what they decided to do is, it used to inject the oil into the intake stream, downstream of the carburetor. So now you can see this banjo fitting. They inject right into the float bowl of the carburetor. So the actual oil mixes with the fuel in the carburetor, and it's a lot better, okay? And you can see this is the bottom of the oil tank. This is going to the oil injection pump right there, okay? So anyway, that was a change for the oil injection system into the carburetor float bowls. You get good mixing there. And then you see this engine has expansion chambers. I put those on it when I restored it. The original pipes, they get clogged up and they were dented. So I put the expansion chambers on there. And that's pretty common thing on a lot of these two-strokes. Just like the Z1, all the fork legs had the capability to have 2 brake calipers. Okay, they all had 1, but people would modify them and put 2. Okay. And you see the horn there. So one thing on this engine, you can see the center cylinder has a lot less cooling fins on it. So most people, like myself, since this runs hotter, especially with the front wheel here, I jet the carburetor 1 step higher. So it's got a bigger jet in it to keep that center cylinder running a little bit cooler. Okay, right there. And then I have a hydraulic brake right here. There's a lot of folklore in these things. How quick they are. Some people, I have my girlfriend on the back, I'm doing a wheelie in 4th gear. None of that's true, okay? However, they are a little quirky. They will lift the front end. Now here at altitude, right, at 5,000 feet, you're down almost 20% horsepower. So down in the valley, you could lift it easy. Here, not so much. But what they did is, for the handling, they put a steering damper. Right, looks similar to my airplane, right? And you could adjust how much dampening by turning this right here. Speedo goes to 140. This is a 120-mile-an-hour motorcycle. The 74 Z1 is 130 miles. Now this gets there quicker, but then it runs out of juice. So these two-strokes, this large bore 750, red lines at 7,500. Now that seems low, but there's a lot of low-end torque, and the horsepower and torque drop off dramatically after 7,000. So really you want to shift to 7,500. Now you hear about the power band on these when it comes on the pipe, you call it. So really it's 6,000 RPM. When you're in first and second, when you're at 6,000, it's like a turbo kicks in or something kicks in and it comes on the pipe and you can't even see the tachometer move, and that's when it would lift the wheel. So first and second, you shift and based on, you just hear it and it's winging. And then third, you could see the tach moving okay, but when it comes on the pipe, you got to be ready, okay? But once you're in third gear, you're okay. Really, it's just first gear, which people would be caught off guard there, and it wouldn't lift the wheel. Now in 74, because they had not the problems, but unsuspecting riders would wheelie, and fall off. So in 74, they lengthened the swing arm 2 inches. Okay, you can see how it looks long, and then see how long the chain is. This is a 122 length chain, but they lengthened the swing arm to try and keep more weight forward and keep the bike on the ground in first gear. So 74 length. And then you can see the shifter. All right, it's got the control here. Now what's interesting on the Kawasaki H2s, don't know why, neutral is on the bottom, all the way on the bottom, if you see this.
Well, that's odd.
It's odd. And there's no neutral in between first and second. So it's neutral on the bottom, 5 up. You don't want leakage in your carburetor because it would fill up the crankcase. So your petcock on these H2s are vacuum controlled and only open the fuel when the engine's running. However, there is a P for a prime, so if the carburetors are empty, you put it on prime and you bypass that and it fills the carburetor. But you don't want to leave it on prime and let it sit there because you will end up filling the crankcase, and that's not good. Okay. And on the left side cover, right, the 74 Z1s, the 73, 74 had a chain oiler. It had a pump. Here, it's also got a chain oiler. So what this is, however, behind this cover, there's a little tank. You put 90 weight gear oil, and see this little valve here. It's a small orifice, and you pull that, and you can see the tube here, and it goes right up here, right there, and it drips 90 weight gear oil on the chain where the sprocket is. It's crazy. So I don't use it anymore because once again, the chains, the quality was not good. The power would override the chain. So I do still have the chain oiler here. If I want to use it, I could, but I don't use it. So you can see the speedometer, 7,500, it goes to 12, but it runs, you can shift it to 8, but the best power is a 7,000 RPM. And then under the seat, so here's your oil tank right here. That's where you add your 2 quarts of injection oil right here. This engine, because of its, burns oil, you want good ignition. It's capacitive discharge ignition right here. These are your 3 modules for your 3 cylinders. And this is an electronic, so it's electronic advance on the ignition, and that's what this box is here.
Now, what about these plugs?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So because it's a 2-stroke, if you're out on the road and you're fouling a plug, you keep 3 brand new plugs in here.
Have you ever needed them?
No.
Huh.
I maintain and run them, but if I'm running on open roads most of the time, but you could foul a plug. Yeah, so they knew that, and they said, hey, we'll give you 3 spare plugs to put in there whenever you need to.
Well, that's interesting.
And here's where your manual would go, and your registration and stuff like that. And here's my thing to sound the tank, right? Like in the submarine, once every 6 hours on watch, you had to sound all the lube oil tank. That's what I do here. It's a 2-stroke triple, and this is a piston port engine. And if you notice, this 3-cylinder engine looks really wide from the front. It's like as wide as the Z1 almost, because the ports, the transfer scavenge ports are on the side of the cylinders. Okay, they're cast into the cylinder. So that's why this engine is wide. So how a piston port engine works basically is it's a 3-inch bore 2.5-inch stroke, so it's over square, which is normal. So the piston's traveling from here to here, okay? So when you start with the piston up, you have a fresh fuel air charge in the top, and it's a Hemi head. It's a real small squish right here. Spark plug's right in the middle, so you have a fresh charge here. And then you have a fresh charge underneath the piston, okay? So there's no crankcase. Some people call it a crankcase, but each lower chamber below the piston is isolated from the next. There's seals on the crankshaft. And that keeps each piston in its own chamber, and that's how these work, okay? The oil there's oil for the transmission here, but that's separate from the crankcase or below it. So anyway, you got a fresh charge here. You got a fresh fuel air charge under the piston. So your ignition, the piston goes down 2.5 inches. And that charge that's underneath the piston, it uncovers the scavenge ports, and the pressurized underneath, it forces the fresh air on the top of the piston. And while it's doing that, it's scavenging the gas, putting it through the pipe, and it's also replenishing the new charge under here on top. And the whole idea behind expansion chambers is you need to scavenge, but you don't want the fresh charge of fuel and air to go out as well. So there's a balance, right? And so emissions, this thing isn't great, right? And then when the piston's coming back up, it uncovers the intake port, which draws the fresh air under the piston with the fresh air and gas, and you're ready for the next stroke. And that's how it works. So you always got a fresh charge underneath and on top. If you pull the pipes out, the engine really it's not going to run because the new air fuel charge is going right out the exhaust instead of in the top. So there's 6 cast into the cylinder. There's 6 ports. You got the intake port, the exhaust port, and there's 4 scavenge transfer ports when the piston's moving. It's not like a regular piston because it's got to work with the scavenge ports, and there's only 2 very small compression rings. And those rings are fixed in place. They're pinned. You can't have a ring rotating with all these ports in here. So the rings are pinned to the aft end of the piston here. Okay, so it's been a few days. Normally 3 or 4 kicks. They like full choke, but then they warm up extremely fast. Okay. So the starting sequence, you fold the right foot, the right peg up, you put this out, turn the key on. So you gotta be a contortionist. Now you gotta hold the choke over, hit the brake. Stuff like it.